This is the Mountain Strong Podcast, episode number 1. Big cheers to Three Cups. So Three Cups is a local coffee shop here in Salt Lake City. They're a little bit south of me down in Holiday. They have thankfully been able to stay in business and be successful enough to keep the doors open and the lights on through the pandemic thus far. Fingers crossed that they continue to make it. If you happen to find yourself in Salt Lake City, you need a good cup of coffee. Fantastic place to check out. Be warned that all of their bakery stuff is really, really good. Their brownies especially, it is pretty addictive. What's cool though, I just found that out about Three Cups this weekend, is they're now roasting coffee on site. This is probably the fourth or fifth of the local really high quality coffee roasters in Salt Lake City. And I love supporting these businesses. Three Cups is also making me personally very happy because they are roasting light to medium to city. For I think for everything they're doing, I generally drink espresso, I generally drink decaf. So this is their decaf bean. It was the only one they had at the shop. I don't know if they do multiple beans, but it's a decaf. It's really good. I consistently use the same beans, whether it's AeroPress or pour over or espresso. It just makes life super simple. But again, Three Cups down in Holiday, definitely check them out. And they're doing a great job with their roasting. So welcome to the Mountain Strong show, the Mountain Strong Podcast. And I want to give you, first and foremost, just a little bit of what this is and what I mean when I say Mountain Strong, because there is a double entendre intended there. It is not the straightforward, be strong enough to go play in the mountains, although it is that, right? I am a skier, I'm a climber, I'm a hiker, I'm a cyclist, I'm a trail runner, sort of, trying to get back into it. And those are the reasons why my wife and I moved out here 8 years ago, why 9.5 years ago I convinced my then girlfriend that we should move here. And then we got married and had a kid. And we're here because of that. I opened a gym because I wanted to serve that community really well, because I saw that community was not being served in terms of what the benefit that we can find out of in-gym training. My people weren't getting this out of CrossFit. We weren't getting it out of like pure kettlebell classes. We weren't getting this out of going to a Globo gym and like just hitting the machines or working with a 22-year-old personal trainer. Instead, what we need to be doing is thinking about the specific kinds of training that are going to make us better in the mountains, right? For me right now, I'm not going to have a ton of a ski season just because we've got a 6-year-old son at home, or 6-week-old son at home. But what I'm doing is I'm really looking forward to spring trail running and being able to maximize there. So my training through the winter, I'll ski a little bit, but my training is really going to be geared towards spring running season. So that's one meaning of Mountain Strong. The other meaning of Mountain Strong is a little bit simpler and a little bit more globally applicable, which is I want you to be strong enough to move mountains. Life is going to, as we all know, life will hand us countless challenges, whether these are global pandemics, whether this is challenges with our family, whether this is challenges with our own physiology or psychology, whatever it is. When those challenges arise, the ability to move through them, to maybe embrace some suffering, or to at least embrace the nuances that it takes in order to survive and thrive through those challenges. That is what I want for you. A really good friend of mine recently lost a father, and thinking about what that feels like and what it means to be able to go home from another country in order to take care of the family and to take care of the things that need to be taken care of. There's a tremendous amount of effort. There's a tremendous amount of inner strength that gets called on for that. And so part of being Mountain Strong is the development of that kind of inner strength, whatever that means for us. And it's going to look different from day to day. So Mountain Strong, one is about being able to play in the mountains really well. And two, it's about having the inner strength to move mountains when necessary. When it comes to being Mountain Strong or getting Mountain Strong, particularly if we think of readiness to go play in the mountains, there is a 5-part hierarchy that I think is essential to understanding. And we're going to start this exploration up at the top and think of it as a pyramid. And as we come down the layers, each layer gets a little bit wider, right? So little pyramids here. This is basically like Rubik's Cube style thing as a pyramid. As we come down, the layers get wider. And if we think of this as a building structure, the total height is dependent on the width of the base, right? A bigger base, a bigger foundation, we can build taller up on top of that. And when we start doing things like this, we're obviously creating a structure that's really unstable. So let's talk about this. That very peak most aspect of our pyramid, of our hierarchy, is a skill specific to a given task condition. And this is incredibly specialized. So if we think of this in terms of a connection to skiing, right? And we'll walk through this. The very top layer is your ability to ski a particular style or type of terrain or type of condition very, very well. And then just below that is the second part of the performance for skiing, which is, do you actually have the ability to ski, period, hard stop? Do you know how to leverage how to angle your knee in order to leverage the edge of the ski into the snow? Do you know where to shift your weight forward and back and how to do that? So at the second layer from the top is, can you ski? The layer at the very top is, can you ski the specific conditions and terrain and style that you want to ski? Because carving groomers at the resort is very different than skiing, 36 inches worth of new snow in the backcountry. Is very different than, jumping off of cliffs and doing flips. Is very different than being in the terrain park. Each one of these styles of skiing requires some very specific skill. My dad is a really nice example of this. My dad is 80. He's a strong skier for 80. He started skiing when I was a kid. So he's been on skis for more than half of his life. But he started skiing in the 70s when the style was close parallel. Skis had no side cut. And a good turn was one where like your whole lower body shifted together. Well, now the style of skiing, because we can now leverage big side cuts, has a lot more knee flexion into it. There's a lot more vertical movement to it. And we tend to get into some like pretty extreme offset positions with our skis, with our boots. Well, that's not my dad's style. So that means that my dad is really, really good at skiing groomers, right? The things he's trained for all of his life. He lives in Michigan. So, he's really used to skiing like hard pack and ice. And so when he comes out here, if there's like a groomer, nice, beautiful day, he's golden. However, if he meets, 4 or 5 inches of snow, anything we would call more than a light dusting, he struggles a little bit because that's a specific skill he doesn't have. So he can ski, and he can ski well, but his ability to demonstrate that is also very context specific. We can think of this as an ultra runner, right? Which is like someone can be ready to run a 50-mile race. Someone I'm working with right now who's running a 50K this spring. We can be ready to run 50K. We can be ready to do the 32 miles of that race, but that does not mean that you're ready to do it in the exact conditions. The weather, the terrain, right? A New England 50K in a soft, loamy forest that's largely covered is really different than a 50K in the high desert. The environmental conditions are very different. Aid station setup, all of these things come into play. So you can be ready to run, long, but you also need to be event specific. So those top two portions of our pyramid, of our hierarchy, are our performance components. This is about readiness for the exact thing that you want to do. Now there's 3 layers below that, and these layers are the athleticism layers. The bottommost athleticism layer is structure. The middle layer is stability, and the top of those 3 layers is strength. What this means is that if you want to have the maximum performance possible, you do need skill, but you also need the strength to be able to execute on the skill. You need the stability in the stabilizer muscles for the big prime movers to be able to fire well and do their thing. And you need to have enough structure, enough overall kind of rigid or flexibly rigid strength through the torso, especially the abs, the low back, the mid back, the upper back, chest and shoulders, maybe depending on task, in order to demonstrate everything above that. So let's break this down a little bit. When it comes to skiing, the two main muscles that are going to do the lion's share of the work for skiing are going to be the quad, who's responsible for extending the knee, and the glute, who's responsible for extending the hip or standing us up. And those two muscles both absorb a lot of force as we go down, and they generate a lot of force as we push. So if the quad or the glutes are weak, well, then our ability to generate force is reduced. However, one of the reasons why they may be reduced in their strength is because the stabilizer muscles, the rotational muscles around the hip, might be weak as well. And if those guys are weak, then your brain knows that weakness at the hip is going to put the knee joint or the hip joint at risk of injury. And how does the brain protect against injury? When it just knows that something's not working very well, it's going to reduce the power output. Your quad will not be as strong if your hip is weak. And it's not that, it's the same muscle group, but it's that your brain is going to limit the amount of power you can generate if that thing is weak. And so we need the stabilizers even more so than the quads, right? Quads are really important because that is the end of the day, the thing. But if you don't have good stability, good stabilizer control, well then the quad's just not as strong as it could be. And then this is also going to come back to our bottommost layer, right? Let's just think back to this very bottom layer of our pyramid. The wider this is, the stronger everything above it gets to be. And this is our structure. This is the abs. This is everything around the waist. This is everything around the torso. It's up into the mid back and the low back. If that is strong, then the quads and all the stabilizers have big, strong things to push against, right? It is the foundation. It is where the power gets generated from. The structure doesn't generate power, but it is the basis of all power generation. So if we are missing any of those bottom three layers, then we have deficits in our athleticism. And one of my folks, Andy said last week really smartly that he's working with me he's working with me because he knows that the performance, that the skill side of the shop is as good as it's going to be right now. And what he needs to do, what he wants to do is leverage his athleticism, improve his athleticism to improve his skiing performance. Whether you're coming off of an injury, coming off of multiple years of not skiing, whether you're new to skiing, or if you've been doing this for a really long time, most of us do have holes in our athleticism game. For me, I started skate skiing last year, and I realized that I did not trust my left leg. I did not like pushing off of my left leg or gliding on my left leg when I was skate skiing. And I talked to a couple of instructors there, and they gave me some tips. And what I came to realize was it wasn't a skill issue. I couldn't fix that with a skill thing, because what I was actually dealing with was some weakness on the outer hip and on the inner thigh, and it still shows up once in a while, that needed to be addressed. So I addressed it, and it's something that's going to be a continual piece for me, really until it's not. And it's hard to say, but again, I'm looking at a really strong training season for running this spring with that left leg as strong as the right one. All right, let's leave it there. Episode 1 in the tank. This is the MTN STRNG Podcast. I'm Mike Krasinski coming from Salt Lake City, Utah. 3 Cups down in Holiday. Check them out, buy some beans, give them some love. And remember that if you want to improve your performance, if you want to improve the overall size and structure of this pyramid, you need to look both at the skill for the thing that you're trying to do, but you also need to look at the overall athleticism, because it is that overall athleticism that is the base for everything that we want to go do in the mountains. With that, I hope you have a wonderful day.